Good morning, Wednesday. We are on First Nephi, chapter 3. Okay, so as always, we'll start with our breath. We're going to start standing today. So bring your hands up to your heart. Start to come to that breath. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Just start to breathe deep. Today's a fun one. We kind of get into some really fun stories. Okay. So keep that breath alive, keep breathing. To kind of welcome some stretches into our body, come into mountain pose. This is mountain pose. Our palms are out, our fingers are out and extended. And just feel strong, feel grounded. This is mountain pose because we rise, we find length in our spine, just like a mountain. You feel strong, you feel powerful, you feel tall. Okay, so ground your feet. Feel the earth beneath you. And come to your breath a little bit. Okay, chapter 3. Refresher. Lehi is seeing this vision. They're in the wilderness. Lamen and Lemuel start to murmur. The difference between Nephi, Lehi, and Lamen and Lemuel is the desire to see God, right? We find that again. And so they're just basically being guided by the Lord. So now, Lehi, sorry, I keep mixing Nephi and Lehi up. They're very similar. Nephi now sees some more of a vision from God and starts to get more of an answer of what they need to be doing. Okay, as we do this, we're going to just side stretch. So bring your arms up and over the head. Grab that left wrist with the right fingers and side stretch. Gaze up past your armpit, past your arm, up towards the ceiling. Stay there for a minute. Okay, so Lehi says he has another dream where the Lord commanded them to return to Jerusalem again. And they've traveled all this way, right? Come back up to center. They've traveled all this way, take a big inhale and a big exhale here for a couple counts. They've come all this way and they're like, seriously, you want us to just kind of turn around and go back to Jerusalem because something's over there? What? And of course, Lamen and Lemuel are murmuring because of this. Yeah, I kind of don't blame them. Reach to the other side. Side stretch to the other side. So they learn that Laben has a record of the plates of brass and that they need to go into Laban's house and go get them. Verse 6. We're going to turn there for a minute. Come back up to center. Inhale here. Okay, so before we talk about verse 6, we're up here. We're just going to swan dive. This is called a swan dive down to our mat, bringing our arms out to the side, bending at the hips. And just take a nice forward fold here. You can plant your palms on your mat or on the ground if you like. Or, you can bend your knees, just kind of get your body moving a little bit. Verse 6, therefore, go my son, and thou shalt be favored of the Lord because thou hast not murmured. Right? We remember that word favored. It's more like I like to replace it as not like a favorite of the Lord, but thou shalt be accompanied by the Lord, because thou hast not murmured. Like, I am there with you because you are there with me. Okay, in verse 7, this is the famous verse, right? The go and do, scripture mastery verse. As we do this, we're going to come into chair pose. So just like you're sitting on a chair, your hips are going to come back, your knees are bent. You don't want them going clear over above your toes. You want your hips to go back farther than your knees are forward. Reach up and look up. And it came to pass that I, Nephi, said unto my father, I will go and do the things which the Lord hath commanded. For I know that the Lord giveth no commandments unto the children of men, save he shall prepare a way for them, that they may accomplish the thing which he hath commanded them. It doesn't say, I have a to-do list and I'm going to go do it. It says, I'm going to go do the things that the Lord hath commanded me. This is a really good way of getting deeper into your chair pose by trying to read the scriptures. There's a nice little tip for you. So why don't we all do that? Why don't we all just kind of sink a little bit lower into your hips? We're definitely waking up those legs. I can feel mine. I hope you can feel yours. So he's like, okay, the Lord hath commanded me to go into Laban's house and get the plates of brass. So I'm going to do it because he asked me to do it. So they sit outside. Okay, come on up. My legs are burning. Come on up and just stretch. So they sit outside of Jerusalem. They travel all the way back, and they're like, okay, who's going to go get them? So they cast lots in verse 11. They cast lots. Swan dive back down, forward fold here. You can grab opposite elbows and just forward fold. They cast lots. And I guess this is a common practice back then when they wanted some revelation or they didn't know what to do. So I looked it up, and it's kind of like rolling dice or rolling sticks or rolling stones is kind of what I gathered. So they basically just say, okay, Heavenly Father, help us decide who's going in here. Let's see, Lamen gets basically the short end of the stick. Which I think is funny because I'm going to go to the side so you can see what I'm doing. But place your palms back on the ground. We're going to come into downward dog. I think it's funny that Laman gets it because he's been murmuring so much. Maybe it's karma. So Laban goes in there and he talks to Laban and he's like, hey, we want something that you have, and can we have it? And Laban's like, what do you think the answer is? Like, of course not. Okay, just lift the right leg to the back of the wall, to the back of you. You want it, you can be flexed or pointed or use your yogi toes. That's what all of those look like. When you're flexed, you find length, and you're using different muscles between all of those foot placements or toe placements. So I'm just going to flex my foot, and you want to keep your hips square. So bring that right hip down to the ground just a little bit more, and you can kind of feel that difference of where that hip goes. So then Laban comes out, and he's like, no, Laban didn't want to give it to us, so let's go, we're done. And bring that foot down, and we're going to lift our left foot. So then, in verse 15, I said unto that, as the Lord liveth, and as we live, we will not go down unto our father in the wilderness until we have accomplished the thing which the Lord hath commanded us. Like, we're not going back until we do this. Which really reminded me of Rachel Hollis. I know a lot of you know who she is. If you don't, look her up, she's awesome. But she, at one point, talked about how you need to just honor yourself and honor your being more so than anyone else. Okay, bring that foot back down, and we're going to bend both knees and just kind of come into this floating squat with our arms out and just stretch here. She talks about honoring yourself more than anyone else. Like, if you say that you're going to work out, on a certain day. You work out on a certain day because you are honoring you. Just like you would like your boss or your best friend or your mom and dad. Yourself and your dignity to yourself is just as important. It just reminded me of that because he's like, no, we're going to do this thing. We're going to do this thing. We can't leave. And we're going to honor that. And they're honoring God as well, not just themselves. But so it's even more so like, no, we're not leaving. Okay, come up into downward dog. Okay, so then they're like, okay, so let's pray. What do we do? In 19 it says it is in the wisdom of God that we should obtain these records. So they're like, we know that God has the answers. So they pray. Okay, from right here, we're going to bring our right leg up one more time. And this time, we're going to scrunch our knee to our nose, kind of. But shift your weight at the same time and just bring that foot down to the ground. If you need some assistance with your arm, just help your leg kind of get as close as you can. This really reminds me of fear versus faith. I'm sure they're fearful to go back into Laban's house the second time, but they're faithful. Like fear and faith are opposites. And they don't have any fear. It seems like, I'm sure they do internally, but they're not using the fear to guide them. They're using 100% faith in this. Okay, so come up in a high lunge if you haven't already. You can bring your arms up and over your head, find length. You do not want your knee over that big toe. You want to keep it back. And ideally, this is at a 90-degree angle. Eventually, don't worry if it's not. If you're clear up here, totally fine. That's the beauty of yoga. You do you. Okay, so then they go in the second time. And this time they're like, okay, so talking didn't work, maybe money. So they go and get all their precious things, their gold and their silver, and everything they own, even their land. And they go back to Laban, and they're like, hey, so we have all these things for you. Will you take this? And we get your brass plates. Come back down to your mat, bring your palms down by your foot. Lift that right leg and bring it back. Come into downward dog, lift the left leg. We're just going to do the same thing. Knee to nose, scrunch it up. Place it between the hands and stay here for a minute, and then we'll rise. And Laban says, no. In fact, I don't like you. I like your things, but I'm going to send my servants. Okay, come on up. I'm going to send my servants to actually slay you, but I still want your gold and silver and precious things and your land. So that's what happens. He gets away with, hating the people. People are after them. They're fleeing the city because they're being chased. But Laban then gets their land, their silver, their precious things. He gets everything. Reach up. And come back down to your mat. Okay, so bring that left leg back, come into downward dog. So he gets away with basically getting all their stuff and chasing these people out of Jerusalem. And of course, Laban and Lemuel are murmuring this entire time. And they're really angry with Nephi and Lehi. And they speak many hard words unto us, their younger brothers, and they did smite us with our rod. And so they're beating them up, right? Okay, from downward dog, we're just going to come, shift our weight, come into seated position at the top of your mat, if you have one, or just the ground. From here, roll onto your back. And we're going to come into happy baby pose. So we're going to bring our feet up, knees are straight, and then bend your knees to the outer side of your body and grab the outer soles of your feet with your hands. You can rock side to side or back and forth. So they're beating Nephi they're beating him up because they're like, this is stupid. And then an angel came and was like, why do you smite your brother with a rod? Don't do that, they're just following the Lord. And after the angel had spoken unto us, he departed. And after the angel departed, Lamen and Lemuel again began to murmur. How is it possible that the Lord will deliver Laban into our hands? Because they know they still need to go get the brass plates, but they don't know how they're doing it. And they'll have to go in a third time. But the angel's like, don't beat each other up, just go and do what I've asked you to do. And that's where the chapter ends. And we will continue tomorrow. Bring the soles of your feet together. Just bring them in towards your body. Bring your knees in your chest, back forward. Come up to a seated position. And just come back to that breath. Inhaling and exhaling. The light in me honors and loves the light within you. I will see you tomorrow.